During last night's program, we covered live for you the scene down in Fulton County, Georgia, where President Trump turned himself in, got processed, and yes, we now have the mugshot. You'll be seeing that a lot for the rest of your lives. He also talked to reporters right after that entire process. Take a look.
Thank you very much for being here. I really believe this is a very sad day for America. This should never happen. If you challenge an election, you should be able to challenge an election. I thought the election was a rigged election, a stolen election, and I should have every right to do that. As you know, you have many people that you've been watching over the years do the same thing, whether it's Hillary Clinton or Stacey Abrams or many others. When you have that great freedom to challenge, you have to be able to, otherwise you're going to have very dishonest elections. What has taken place here is a travesty of justice. We did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. And everybody knows it. I've never had such support, and that goes with the other ones too. What they're doing is election interference. They're trying to interfere with an election. There's never been anything like it in our country before. This is their way of campaigning, and this is one instance, but you have three other instances. It's election interference. Yep. So I want to
Thank you, by the way, to our friends at Newsmax for that video. So, is he wrong? It sounds like it's a perfectly reasonable defense. You should be able to contest the results of an election. And if you can't, then we're going to have some rigged elections. Let's bring in Cully Stimson. He's the author of Rogue Prosecutors, How Radical Soros Lawyers Are Destroying America's Communities. He's also the Deputy Director of the Legal Center at Heritage Foundation. Well, is this actually the result of a rogue prosecutor? Is Ms. Willis in your book, Cully?
She's not, but she should be, because she also was funded by George Soros, and it's not a mistake here that 2/3 of the prosecutors now going after Trump are Soros bought and paid for rogue prosecutors. So our next book, I guess we'll have to cover her.
She'll be in the sequel, yeah. I want to talk about her and how she's applying the law here in this case in a moment. But to Mr. Trump's statement there, I'm sure you've had a chance to look at this point and look at the indictment. Does it really just boil down to criminalizing contesting an election, or is there more to this than that?
So the state RICO statute, Larry, is different than the federal RICO statute in that it's a little broader and looser. But at the end of the day, a RICO prosecution means that you're either doing something illegally to achieve a legal end or something legally to achieve an illegal end. And what Trump did is what Al Gore did and what Stacey Abrams did and what Hillary Clinton did and a lot of other politicians did, is call out people, call people, pressure people lawfully using their First Amendment rights to find votes that they think they lawfully got. And so I think this is a big overreach. And you could switch out the last name Trump in the indictment and put in Clinton or Gore or any number of other people who've contested elections. I think it's a massive overreach, and I think it sets a horrible precedent.
So this is great, and I just want to explain this a little further because people are confused, and I don't think they're getting highly politicized analysis instead of legal analysis. They look at a tweet from Donald Trump saying that he's watching a hearing on television about what happened in Georgia, and that is cited as one of the acts contributing to this RICO conspiracy. So this explains it. I think you've just put it out there that a on the face of it legal act is part of the illegal scheme. That's how they cited that thing, because the premise is asking to overturn the election was the overall illegal scheme. Is that right?
Right. That's exactly right. And I mean, her theory of the case is that the criminal enterprise, Trump Incorporated, was essentially like a mafia gang, and that they were engaged in illegal activities to overturn an election, neither of which was lawful. And of course, both were lawful. Look at the call he had with Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State. Look at the transcript that's on CNN's website. Point to one thing where he says, I order you, I demand from you, Brad, that you do this for me. He's saying, I think. Cleta Mitchell, one of the co-conspirators in this case, his counsel, says, actually, Mr. President, that's not true. No, that's not true. Raffensperger said, no, that's not true. So that call alone exonerates him on that charge if you read the transcript.
Right. But that explains also why the lawyers have gotten caught up in this, because, of course, they're giving perfectly legal advice, but because the DA thinks that that's contributing to the larger illegal enterprise, then that legal advice is now considered criminal. Part of the criminal act.
Right, and remember under RICO, Larry, if you think of a wheel with spokes, anyone on any one of those spokes who has any connection to any other person is caught up in the RICO. So poor Mark Meadows, who was the chief of staff, who was just chief of staffing, attending meetings, he's brought into this simply because he attended a meeting. So he's trying to remove his case to federal court, and that's why Jim Jordan has sent a letter to Fani Willis saying, look, there are sincere, serious federal issues here, and we're going to conduct appropriate oversight of your broad-ranging indictment.
So, Cully, not to give Ms. Willis any ideas here, but at the time I was a commentator, I wrote columns saying that I think there was something wrong with the way this transpired. I gave commentary on the air about it. I interviewed Ms. Ellis, Mr. Giuliani, and Ms. Powell about this. Could she have brought me in? Could she have indicted me for contributing to the conspiracy?
Well, as your counsel in spirit, I think you should stop interviewing those people, Larry.
But what does that tell you?
All kidding aside, look, you make a good point. There's no limiting principle to this theory of the case.
Right.
And because there's no limiting principle, that means there's no principle in this case because there's no there.
Right. Let's put this in the left's language. You know, back in 1971, when the state law in Texas prohibiting abortion was being challenged, those lawyers writing legal opinions saying, no, it should be legal to kill a baby before it's born, that was a criminal enterprise, wasn't it? They were giving legal advice. It led to Roe v. Wade, but this is pre-Roe v. Wade. So couldn't you have taken this exact same approach as Ms. Willis as a district attorney and hauled those lawyers who were advocating for the killing of unborn children into jail?
Sure, and couldn't the lawyers who were advising JFK in 1960 about the election that Richard Nixon won, he thought he won in Hawaii, yet wanted to create alternate electors in Hawaii.
Right.
Couldn't those lawyers be sued under this theory? I mean, there's no limiting principle to this theory, and this is why this is a uniquely federal issue, and she is in, I think, ethical hot water here because she's been fundraising prior to the release of this indictment off of this, and Alvin Bragg promised he would go after Trump even before he was elected. So I think if they were Republican DAs going after a former Democrat president, the state bar associations would clip their wings and pull their licenses.
Which brings us back to your book, which is so critical, and it's doing so well, and congratulations on it. There's a reason why it's doing so well, because it's true, it's fact-based, and it's something everyone in this country is dealing with for the most part. The book is Rogue Prosecutors: How Radical Soros Lawyers Are Destroying America's Communities. This is just another example of this. It goes well beyond injecting some warped idea of criminal justice reform into your actions by ignoring the law and letting criminals go free. You're also highly politicizing now the basic act of being a prosecutor and finding crime that doesn't exist.
Right. They're bastardizing the role of the prosecutor and over-politicizing it when, in fact, Lady Justice and prosecutors should be blind. They should only bring cases that have merit. And prosecution is a solemn and important duty. I've done it. I've done defense. I've done judging. The job is not to get convictions. It's to do justice. But it's also to enforce the law as written. And she's engaged in a very creative indictment here that, again, has no limiting principle. And again, she's a Soros bought and paid for person, so you know what you're going to get.
And yet, as we've seen in other jurisdictions, because she's on the correct side of politics in that area, in Fulton County, the voters are not going to hold her accountable. This is making her popular, the fact that she's doing this, even though it's an abuse.
Well, for now, we'll see. But remember, Chesa Boudin, who was the darling of the left, because of his pro-criminal anti-victim policies, the Democratic voters in San Francisco ultimately recalled him. The same happened in Baltimore with Marilyn Mosby. The Democratic voters there booted her. She didn't win her primary. Rachel Rollins up in Boston resigned in disgrace after her ethical lapses. And so these people's Achilles heel is their moral relativity and their lack of a moral compass. And so this may ultimately end in her demise.
And maybe their hubris, thinking that they're untouchable. All right, we'll leave it there.
Exactly.
Cully Stimson, Heritage Foundation, great stuff. And again, congratulations on the book. It's called Rogue Prosecutors, and we got a lot of them out there. There's more to come on O'Connor tonight. Keep it here on Salem News Channel.